Greetings, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, dear participants, colleagues, and friends. Welcome to the United Nations 13th Conference of States Parties to the CRPD side event, The Voices and Actions of Youth in Promoting Inclusive and Diverse Environments for the Full Implementation of the CRPD. This session is co-organized by the Voice of Youth Japan, Empower Project, and UNITAR-University of Tokyo KOMEX Forum on Diversity, Disability, and Inclusion. I would like to first give a great gratitude to all of the stakeholders who made this event happen, and a very special thanks to our colleagues Ayana Yamakawa, Erina Nishizaki, Minami Tsuji, Minori Kamachi, Rika Sugata, Satoko Hagino, Satoshi Iyama, and Yuka Mizushima for your outstanding efforts in producing this video session. My name is Shunsuke Oka, Chief of Voice of Youth Japan External Relation Team and a senior student in the University of Tokyo, Japan. It is my greatest honor to take part and serve as the moderator in this very special event today. The Voice of Youth Japan, or the VOYJ, was launched on 10th of October 2018 at the UNICEF House in Tokyo when UNICEF Executive Director Ms. Henrietta Fore visited Japan. The VOYJ is run by the VOYJ Management Committee organized by the University of Students in partnership with the UNICEF Tokyo office and Japan Committee for UNICEF. The VOYJ's objective is to offer an online platform for every youth all over Japan, beyond geographical and other barriers, to exchange ideas with other youth with various backgrounds, understand others' viewpoints, and connect and engage with other youth by utilizing comment fields. Special attention has been paid to the voices of marginalized youth and accessibility so that this platform can mobilize voices from non-traditional youth, including those who are among the silent majority and the silent minority. I would like to start with one phrase that we use in Voice of Youth Japan. Dear all youth in the world, do you have a chance to express yourself freely or capture a straightforward message from someone of your age? Dear all adults in the world, do you have a chance to meet the actual feelings and actions of youth? In our world today, 1 in every 4 people are young people aged 10 to 24. In many developing countries, those numbers reach an amount that young people fill the majority of the population. Even in other countries, youth and its voices present strong power and oppression in people's minds. This reveals that it is the young people, it is our generation, who are the key stakeholders in taking advantage of our straightforward impressions and ideas that we emerge every day in developing innovative solutions towards solving the numerous remaining challenges on diversity and inclusion. With 14 years passed since the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, various efforts has been taken by different levels of stakeholders, international to local, governmental to private. The 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals has also provoked the international society to leave no one behind, giving increased attention to universal human rights and respect, and the necessity to address our current challenges in cooperation with all generations. The COVID-19 crisis we currently face has once again highlighted the necessity of continuous efforts on disability inclusion, as persons with disabilities are among the hardest affected population in this crisis, both physically and mentally. However, at the same time, the current crisis presents the opportunity to reconstruct our society into a more diverse and inclusive one. And it is the youth, our generation, who were raised in this difficult and complex world, who will be the key stakeholders in the post-COVID-19 world. In the panel discussions today, global young leaders will be sharing their expertise and experiences they have acquired through their actions towards accomplishing an inclusive and diverse environment, with special attention to the intersectionality of disability, age, gender, and other differences, as well as how our generation can take actions to promote the full implementation of the CRPD. Now, it is my great honor to welcome HE Foreign Minister Luis Gallegos, Republic of Ecuador, Chair of UNITAR Board of Trustees and the former President of the UN Conference of States Parties of CRPD, to open the event. It is my greatest privilege to have you here today.
Distinguished panelists, dear moderator, ladies and gentlemen. As President of the Board of UNITAR, I am delighted that the UNITAR at the University of Tokyo Global Forum on Diversity, Disability and Inclusion is organizing the events in conjunction with the 13th session of the Conference of State Parties to the CRPD and the 2020 International Day of Persons with Disabilities on the 3rd of December. The voices of action of youth in promotion inclusive and diverse environments for the full implementation of the CRPD, and also the intersection of peace, diversity, and disability, also in partnership with the Voices of Youth, Japan, Unite, and the Empower Project, University of Tokyo, KOMEX, University of Kanazawa, and the Nagasaki University School of Global Humanities and Social Sciences, in conjunction with the 13th session of the Conference of State Parties and the CRPD. Young people's voices and actions indeed play a key role in the recovery of the COVID-19 crisis and building back better toward an inclusive, accessible, and sustainable world for all, as follow-up to the Young People's Roundtable Youth Voices and Action toward an inclusive post-COVID-19 world, organized by the Global UNITAR, the University of Tokyo Global Forum on Diversity, Disability, and Inclusion earlier this August. With their innovative minds, young leaders can tackle the complexity and intersecting forms of discrimination and inequalities that help remove multiple barriers persons with disabilities face in their daily lives, environmental, institutional, and attitudinal, from the promoting diversity for prosperity for all. The theme of the intersection of peace, diversity, and disability is at the heart of the international community's continuous pursuit of the peace and prosperous world based on human rights and developments for all. With the participation of stakeholders from Nagasaki, this event will prove to be of significant importance to addressing the disability perspective in an agenda of peace and security. I trust that the energy, enthusiasm, and innovation of this forum will help transform our vulnerabilities into strengths and create a new chapter in our common endeavors toward an inclusive, accessible, and sustainable world for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister Gallegos, for your very inspiring remarks. Next, I would like to hand the stage to our exceptional panelists from around the globe. It is my honor to welcome Omar Didi from France, President of the MAG Jeunes, an association by the youth in France offering occasions for young LGBTI populations to express their preferences safely and freely.
Hello everyone, I'm Omar Didi, President of MAG Jeunes LGBT, the movement of affirmation of lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans youth here in France. I'm very happy to join this very important side event of the Conference of State Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. First of all, I would like to thank the Voice of Youth Japan, the UNICEF Tokyo office, as well as the Japan Committee for UNICEF and all of the youth in Japan that have been working on this side event, but as well working every day in order for the voices of youth to be brought forward in the international fora. I'm gonna respond to the first question, which is, as a young leader, what kind of innovative actions have I taken in order to realize a more inclusive and accessible world? So I think the first thing really been working on is in terms of inclusion of LGBTI youth is really once somebody comes to our center to have access to different types of actions and different types of initiatives, to different types of support for them. So, for instance, we launched specific groups for LGBTI youth who are asylum seekers and refugees. There's another one for LGBTI youth who are facing racism, and another one for LGBTI youth who would be facing sexism. So these groups they meet on a bi-monthly or monthly basis in order to really have this peer-to-peer exchange and in order to have this peer-to-peer support. Another initiative would be a group for psychological support of LGBTI youth, where any LGBTI youth who's gonna contact us can have access to a psychologue for free, and to have access to a free psychological support on during the entire year. Another initiative that's more international would be the Conference on the Rights of Inclusion of LGBTI Youth. It's the first global conference we're working on. We're working on it with Austria, the Netherlands, Canada, and France, as well as UNESCO and the city of Paris, and we're bringing in May, hopefully 2021, LGBTI youth from all across the world, as well as high-level representatives from international organizations, cities, and governments, in order to start a dialogue on the inclusion of LGBTI youth all across the world, but also in order to launch an international LGBTI youth initiative, an organization, and also building together public policies that are inclusive of LGBTI youth on all levels, may it be on the city level or on the international level. Another initiative would be the opening and the launching of interventions in schools outside of Paris and the Ile-de-France regions, in order to bring awareness on LGBT phobia to other peers, people who will be in high school or in middle school, and to fight LGBT phobia within the educational system. So I think those are some initiatives in terms of accessibility. It's really to, in terms of the organization, it's really to look at not only LGBTI youth, but also at other problematics that LGBTI youth might be facing. So LGBTI youth, for instance, that will be living with disability. That's really important for us to bring together the voices and to bring our support, our social support, to all type of LGBTI youth, and to bring and to really look at what they are living and at the different circumstances, especially when it's intersectional discrimination. We need to take this into consideration, and we really need to adapt all of our programs so that they can reach all types of LGBTI youth, and to also have a solidarity with other youth organizations that would be dealing with disability as well, or that would be dealing with racism, with women's rights, etc., etc. I think that would bring me to the second question, which is, what are the specific good practices and lessons that I have learned in terms of realizing inclusion and accessibility in our activities? So first thing I think is really the peer-to-peer approach, which is really important. It's one of the good practices that should really be shared, because the peer-to-peer approach really makes it so that our interventions in schools are very effective to other students and to high schoolers and middle schoolers. But also, when we're working with LGBTI youth, the peer-to-peer approach is very effective, as this is how the affirmation in terms of sexual orientation and gender identity really happen. It's by talking to your peers. The same can be said in terms of all other youth. It's talking with other youth that we can affirm our values and where we can affirm our identity and fight for our fundamental rights. Another good practices is to be youth governing. I mean, in terms of our governance here, we are elected youth by other youth, and it's very important, because this is what makes it so that as we are youth, we can bring the voices of youth. And in terms of the organization, in terms of the logistical approach, in terms of the political approach, in terms of how we implement our different programs, this is how they are effective, because they are made up by youth, and the youth are governing the entire system of the organization. The third thing, another good practice, is really partnering, to have a really broad partnerships with different types of stakeholders. May it be cities, that's really important, because this is where we face discrimination on an everyday level. but also with governments, international organizations as well, and broadening our perspective outside of our own sectors. So per se, mine would be LGBT, but that doesn't limit us. And this is how we can partner. This is why we partner with other organizations that would be fighting for women's right, for example, or people's with disabilities right. All of our rights are interlinked, hence why we really need to take this partnership level forward. In terms of the and I think that the last thing that I would say in terms of the good practices is really to have this intersectionality lens. We really need to look at everything with an intersectional eye and with an intersectional glasses. That's really important in terms of implementing everything that we want to implement and to be as inclusive and accessible as possible. I would speak about one challenge, which is the financial challenge. In terms of our headquarters, in here, our different centers, we really need to have centers that are accessible for youth who will be living with a physical disability, and that requires obviously funding in order to have a bigger office, in order to have in order to have a place that's truly accessible on the physical sense, and that's something that we've been working for, but the challenge has really been to bring awareness to this specific issue to decision makers. So in terms of the third question, what kind of good practices and gaps exist in including persons with disabilities in our activities? So one that I said, it's one of the challenges um, that have been learned. It's true that young people with disabilities do not always have the option to take part in organization of youth without disabilities because of the accessibility or because of the psychological barrier. In terms of the psychological barrier, we've been training our staff here and our volunteers in order for it to not be any type of um, issue there. But in terms of the accessibility in the office, it's a bit harder because we really need to work on our on getting funding in order to change our center in Paris. The other centers on the other part of France are accessible. Paris is really our challenge here. So the fourth question: what should be done to promote true inclusion of persons with disabilities based on our activities, with a special attention to intersectionality? So in order to have a true promotion, I think it deals with one of the issues that I've been discussing, which is partnership. We really need to not be intersectorial, to only work in our sector. We really need to open up, and this is something that should be done in order to promote true inclusion of persons with disabilities. It's really broaden up the partnership, going elsewhere, thinking about human rights as fundamental rights for everyone and not just specific LGBT rights, people with disabilities rights, women's rights, etc. And if we do this, we would be able to really implement good policies and also to have a stronger voice altogether. So I think this is definitely a step. It's really the partnership step, and to not work only in our sector and not to only work with our already known partners. We need to go further, and we need to defend all the rights of all youth all across the world. So the fifth question: what action should youth take in order to promote the full implementation of the CRPD? So in this instance, there is obviously the grave problem, which is education, the access of education. So I think one of the actions that could be taken is interventions in schools, which we already do, for example, in terms of the on fighting LGBT phobia and sexism. I think the fact of again broadening up our spheres of partnership is something that's very important, and also, and this is, I think, one of the most important things there. It's really to bring the voices of youth with disabilities and of youth in general to the political arena and to decision makers, because people with disabilities are in some countries absent from discussion on social inequality, inclusion, and poverty. It's something that should be brought up, and youth with disabilities need not to be forgotten. And I think one of the sentences that I would really like to include in this presentation is really the fact of not of not working. I mean, in this instance, it's really to say that nothing is done without us. We need to be part of the discussion. Youth need to be part of any discussion that's on youth, and we need to be part of even discussions that are not specifically on youth, in order for our rights to be fully and truly respected. I'm sorry I've done this across 10 minutes, but it was so good to be here and it was so good to raise this specific topic. Thank you so much for having me, and I wish you all a very, very good side event. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Omar. Your inspiring messages and efforts in accomplishing a truly diverse and inclusive society through your actions with the LGBTI community. Our next panelist is Ms. Amisha Agrawal from India. Ms. Agrawal has been taking part in two NGOs in climate change and gender equality issues while working in the Kumaba Times magazine and pursuing her studies in the East Asian Studies program at the University of Tokyo. Thank you very much for joining today. The stage is yours.
Hi, my name is Amishi. I'm 20 years old and I'm from India. I currently live and study in Tokyo. I am most passionate about issues surrounding gender inequality and climate change. But before I go any further, I want to begin with a story from when I was 7 years old. So, my aunt and uncle had two daughters, and they were about to give birth to their third child. And I distinctly remember my parents talking and saying that as soon as my aunt realized that she had given birth to a third girl child, she grew so despondent that she didn't even want to hold her own child for a whole hour. As a 7 year old, I was shocked. And the first thing I did was ask my own parents if they too were sad when I was born. Of course not, they said. So I asked them if sometimes other parents are sad when they give birth to daughters. And they looked at me very sadly and said that yes, sometimes that does happen. If I have to look back to some moments that have shaped me the most, then this memory from when I'm 7 is definitely one of them. Because it was then that I decided that I wanted to fight against whatever it is that makes a parent feel anything but love for their newborn child. And gradually, I also developed a passion for the environmental movement. And this brings me to the work that I do as a youth activist here in Tokyo. So I'll just very quickly go over what I do. This year, I joined the board of directors for two NGOs. One of them is called Climate. It's based in Canada and it focuses on climate literacy, research, and justice. The second NGO is called Women Powered International. It's based here in Tokyo. I also teach underprivileged kids in government schools in rural parts of India over Skype regularly. And I recently started working as a content writing intern for a magazine, and I will focus on South Asian social issues for them. I also work as an editor at the Tokyo International Law Hub and as the social section editor for Komawa Times, which is an English language magazine by the students at the University of Tokyo. Now that you know more about who I am, where I come from, and what I do, I want to go back to the story we began with because recently I had a realization. And I admit that it was kind of late to have this realization, but nonetheless, it was a very difficult realization for me. I realized that if it took my aunt a whole hour to embrace her child just because she was a girl, I know for a fact that it would have taken her a lot more time if my cousin was born with some form of a disability. And while this breaks my heart, it reminds me of the fact that there is a very crucial intersection of the disability rights movement with other social justice movements. Let me give you an example from my own work. So, the possible effects of the pandemic on education of young girls in rural India is often discussed. As schools have shut down on the one hand, poverty has risen on the other. And this means that young girls are more often seen as an economic burden to their families. And this then gives rise to an increase in child marriages for nothing but a measly bride price in exchange. And while just this much is heartbreaking by itself, I shudder to think as to what's going to happen with young girls in rural India who also have some form of a disability. Because they weren't even in schools before the pandemic began. And the worst case scenario for young girls, that is child marriage, is not even a possibility for them. A second example could be that of refugees. So we often talk about a situation of a conflict, maybe leading refugees to undertake artist journeys and then go through a lot of challenges to restart their lives in completely foreign environments. But let's just pause for a second and think about maybe a refugee who has maybe some sort of a physical impairment. And for them, even the thought of undertaking this artist journey is almost nearly an impossibility. And yet, as we can clearly see with these examples, that persons with disabilities form one of the most vulnerable intersectionalities with other vulnerable social groups. The disability rights movement has not become as mainstreamed as, say, for example, the feminist or anti racist discourse. How I can say this from my own personal life is, as college students, most of us come across, say, feminist texts, but it's very rare for us to interact with disability rights movement related texts. And while a lot of other social justice movements have undergone a paradigm shift in recognizing that mere legal equality is not enough to correct centuries of discrimination, similar consensus is yet to be achieved for the disability rights movement. In this situation, the first thing that the youth must do is we must ask ourselves how an ideal world, an inclusive world for persons with disabilities would look like. And in my humble opinion, in this world, whether or not a person is born with or later in life develops some form of a disability, this would have no direct impact, no direct negative impact on their personal, professional, social, or political lives. And then, second, as soon as we know what kind of world we want, it is up to us, the youth, to not just demand this world, but to actively create it. As I wrap up today, I quickly want to talk about some of the ways I imagine we can get there. One clear similarity between the environmental movement and the disability rights movement is their lack of integration with other social justice movements. And I think that by coming together, it's not just that we'll be stronger together, but that we'll be able to help our most vulnerable populations from the bottom up. So, I want the disability rights advocates who might be watching this session today to think about and research about the unique challenges faced by persons with disabilities who are also members of other vulnerable social groups. For social justice advocates who work in other areas like me, I think it's high time that we think about ways in which we can effectively build alliances with the disability rights movement as a whole. But most importantly, for people who might not identify themselves as activists, there's so much to do. And the first step is making sure that no matter what you do, your content and your websites are more accessible. This begins with simple things like automatic captioning for videos and putting alt text for the images that you upload. But then this also goes on to include increasing representation and increasing agitation for representation and education of the disability rights movement. Because if you think about it, it's absurd that sign language, for example, is not offered as a foreign language or as a language course in universities and high schools, or that we're not yet asking and fighting for statutory quotas for persons with disabilities in the parliament. And it is only by letting our imaginations create the world that we want, that the full and real implementation of the CRPD is possible. I began today by saying that I've focused on the intersection of gender inequality and climate change. But I want to end my speech today by saying that from now on, my work will definitely include a specific angle of advocacy for persons with disabilities. I am more than thankful to Shun, Yosuke, and the others at Voices of Youth Japan for asking me to speak today because it has helped me to reflect a lot on my own work. I honestly believe that the path to a truly inclusive and accessible world for persons with disabilities will be led by the community itself. And I want to learn from you to work with you. So if anyone watching today has any ideas or any feelings that they want to discuss, I would honestly love nothing more than to hear from you. And my email address is on the screen. And I think that will be all from me for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Agrawal, for your enthusiastic and energetic messages. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Firdaus Uthman Michio from Ghana, currently a student in the University of Ghana studying animal biology and conservation science.
Hello, my name is Firdaus Uthman Michio, a student of the University of Ghana. I am majoring in animal biology and conservation science. I am very happy and honored to be part of this program to represent the voices and actions of the youth in Africa in promoting inclusive and diverse environments for the full implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD. Now, if someone asks what is disability, diversity and inclusion, and what comes to your mind when you hear about them? CRPD states persons with disability include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. Diversity means a range of different social and ethnic background and of different gender and sexual orientation, age, disability, among others. Inclusion means the practice of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people that have been excluded, such as persons with disabilities and other marginalized groups, including refugees and internally displaced persons. Diversity, disability, and inclusion all come together, and their intersection is the key to promote the inclusive and diverse environment for the implementation of the CRPD. As a young leader, what do you think you can do to promote inclusion of all, including youth with disabilities, in your country? Before we get to the answer, I would love to share my experience in my country, Ghana. Ghana is part of the West Africa and it has 16 regions. The situation related to diversity, disability and inclusion varies quite a lot region by region. In Accra, our capital, the public institutions including tertiary, secondary and primary schools as well as the transport system are getting more accessible bit by bit, but often still lacks physical and institutional accessibility from elevators and accessible buses to policies. But probably more profound is that people tend to neglect persons with disability and deprive them of a sense of belonging to society as well as their basic human rights. Hence, this makes the life of persons with disability difficult, even in their quest for survival. In rural areas, basic social amenities such as public toilets, schools, hospitals, and recreational centers are very limited, and if any, they have been built in a way that does not pay attention to accessibility for persons with disability. In such rural areas, human resources for disability and diversity are immensely lacking, and there is only a limited number of trained personnel, hence they have very high workload. In addition, some traditions hamper persons with disability to fulfill inclusion and access to basic needs and services, including even primary education. As a result, many persons with disability are marginalized and often isolated in the homes or in camps. The social stigmatization against persons with disabilities widely prevails among community members too, which is very alarming and requires big change in awareness. It is often unheard that persons with disabilities take up traditionally high positions as chiefs, king, or queens. This is because they are mistakenly deemed misfits for such positions. For example, while the Ashanti king is highly educated and has groomed before he became the king, persons with disabilities are stripped of such opportunities in many cases. At the same time, Ghana has a rich experience in responding to the needs of various people. For example, Ghana has included many refugees and asylum seekers in its community. As of December 2019, 13,463 refugees and asylum seekers live in Ghana, with half of them being from Cote d'Ivoire, according to UNCHR. Other countries that are from include Togo, Liberia, and Sudan. There have been various international and national refugee support and inclusion programs, and many young people have been involved in them. One of the solutions must be learning from those existing programs related to the marginalized populations. In other words, we can mutually learn from and adopt countermeasures and good practice among refugee programs, gender programs, child and adolescent programs, and disability rights programs. The project I am working on is to assess the impact of e-waste contaminated soil on terrestrial invertebrates using the earthworm as a model organism. Terrestrial invertebrates are animals without vertebrae, as the name suggests, and they dwell in the soils. Example of such animal is the earthworm. These invertebrates are very important in the environment by providing food for other animals and also aerating our soils for good crop production. However, human activities can kill these invertebrates. Such activities like burning of e-waste, which leads to the release of various heavy metals that are harmful to both plants and animals at large. E-waste contaminated soil could get into foods and vegetables that are produced at these e-waste sites, leading to serious implications like cancer over a period of time. The Aboblochi slum in the Greater Accra region is Ghana's largest e-waste burning site. Most people from the northern part of Ghana and other neighboring countries come down south to seek greener pastures. However, job opportunities are less for them, hence they resort to such harmful and tedious activities like burning of e-waste. Many persons with disabilities are also made engaged in e-waste burning despite its serious health implications. This is due to lack of job opportunities for persons with disabilities and discrimination against them. If their basic rights are protected, these problems could be minimized or eradicated completely. More job opportunities will lead to empowerment of young persons with disabilities. In particular, private entrepreneurs can promote employment of persons with disabilities, and at the same time, opportunities to set up their own businesses for young persons with disabilities should be expanded. With careful consideration of the above mentioned, here are some plausible measures that youth can contribute to the full implementation of CRPD in countries including my country, Ghana. First, acknowledging ability of people rather than inability is a key. We have various differences and we can contribute to the society utilizing each of our different capabilities. Second, we need to shed more light on rural needs and situations rather than making decisions based on data and information centered only on the capital. We have different needs in different contexts and culture in rural areas. Young people can play a key role in sharing those real situations and cultural aspects in rural areas with highlighting unique good practice in each area. Third, I would like to mobilize global networks of youth in capitalizing advanced technologies and innovative ideas to enhance environmental accessibility, including transforming mobility and communications of persons with disability to be easy and accessible in both capitals and rural areas, especially in schools. For example, we can involve transport and construction agencies, and this will not only contribute to promoting accessibility of persons with disability, but also all people, including children and adolescents who go to schools, pregnant women, older persons, and tourists. Fourth, young people might not have huge financial resources or political power. We can contribute through providing training to fellow youth and raising awareness among the general public to tackle misconceptions and social stigma, as well as to empower persons with disabilities. We might also be able to promote employment of persons with disabilities through our entrepreneurship movement. The new trend to utilize advanced technologies and to work from home among youth will be geared towards further comfortability and accessibility of work and living of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Last but not least, today I would like to report to you that I am establishing a team to promote empathy and empowerment of all people, including persons with disabilities in Ghana. This team will consist of a large number of youth to ensure its diversity among ourselves. I hope for the future is to see ourselves as the key game changes in diversity and inclusion and provide role model to accessive generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Michio, for your inspirational messages for the full implementation of CRPD in Ghana, and we are all wishing for your success in your new team. Now, I would like to welcome Ms. Gyanyu BK, a former trainee in UNICEF from Kathmandu, Nepal. Ms. Gyanyu has also experiences as a youth campaign member in Youth Advocacy Nepal, promoting youth empowerment and its role in making society a better and peaceful place, as well as a team leader in Rally International Nepal, raising awareness on various local issues, especially for the girls in rural villages. It is our honor to have you here today. The stage is yours.
Hello and namaste to everyone. I'm Gyanu BK from Kathmandu, Nepal. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizers, the Voices of Youth Japan, an initiative by UNICEF Tokyo office and the Japan Committee for UNICEF for this great opportunity to share my feelings, experiences, opinions and ideas as a woman from the so-called low caste in Nepal. I would like to talk about the experiences of youths in Nepal, especially focusing on the differences such as caste, gender, and person with disability. I belong to a marginalized community called Dalit. We have basically two castes, high caste and low caste. People of high caste are considered pure, whereas people of low caste like me are considered impure. Hence, we are treated accordingly. We are also called untouchables. In my case, I have to endure two forms of discrimination. First, as a woman, and second, as a woman of low caste. There are many incidents of discrimination that I have experienced in my life. I remember my professor giving an example in trying to explain a topic related to theory in my master degree program. The word he used, kami, was demeaning and derogatory. Since I was the only low caste woman in class, I felt so embarrassed and sad. I felt as though he was pointing at me. It was as if everyone was watching me as the classroom became silent. Similarly, a few weeks ago, I was in a restaurant with my husband. We were having coffee. There was a family in front of our table enjoying tasty foods. Once they were gone, two waiters came to clean their table and one of them said, "Kasto फोहोर गरेको table, कामीले जस्तै." In English it says how dirty they have made this table, exactly like low caste people kamis do. This made me quite angry and sad too. Such incidents have motivated me to raise my voice against caste-based discrimination. I'm very much grateful to my parents who provided me good education and supported me in every step of my life. They trusted me and gave me freedom to make decisions in my life, especially things related to my career. There are so many girls and women of my caste who are not getting proper education and have nobody to support their dreams. Comparatively, the economic condition of low caste people is poor in Nepal. Hence, they can't afford to go to schools. Especially in far western part of Nepal, girls and women are quite marginalized. They are compelled to follow the bad social practices that stop them even more from moving forward and being empowered. There is one bad social practice called Chaupadi in western part of Nepal, which forces girls and women of all castes to stay out of their houses during their period. They are compelled to stay in cow sheds during those days as they are considered impure and are not allowed to enter their houses and temples. This also exposes them to various health conditions due to lack of proper care and poor hygiene during menstruation. Thankfully, I am aware enough to realize the need to raise our voices against such bad social practices and discrimination that stop women and girls from getting empowered. Moreover, I have been engaged in various youth empowerment programs as I also worked as a youth campaign member in Youth Advocacy Nepal. During my time with Yan, I got chance to participate in various dialogues and discussion sessions about the youth empowerment and their role in making society a better and a peaceful place to live. We also had a training on self-defense. Also, we conducted various awareness sessions on STD and reproductive health in a government school in Kathmandu for the students of grades 8 and 9. There is a law in constitution against people who discriminate people of low caste. However, the law is rarely seen implemented. Victims do not get justice. I know it's very difficult to change the system and bad social practice, but at least we can try our best to change them by doing whatever little we can do from our position. All youths from around the world need to come together to make a difference in society by supporting and empowering each other. Furthermore, I also worked as a team leader in Rally International Nepal. We were placed in Basan, a rural village in Hetauda, Makwanpur district, Nepal. I, with my other colleagues, conducted awareness raising programs on various topics such as menstrual hygiene and importance of SDG, focusing especially on goal number 3, 4, 5 and 6 for the local people and girls of that village. The village basically has a dominant Tamang population, which is another marginalized community but not Dalit, with a minor Dalit presence. The youths there are not empowered as they don't get proper education and training. They don't have good guidance. Hence, while we stayed in that village for 1.5 months, we actively conducted various programs and discussion sessions with them about why as a youth they are important for their community and how they can play their part to make a difference in their community. We engaged them in a litter picking campaign to make the community clean and safe. We also delivered a session on leadership to make them realize that they needed to come forward and practice their leadership skills for the betterment of their community. In addition, my team also interacted with the members of the mothers group in Nepali Ama Samuha of the community to know the reality of the situation of women. We also discussed how they could empower each other by engaging them in various activities. Regarding the CRPD, Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities, in the context of Nepal, I recently had a conversation with my colleague who is differently able. She has a deformed leg. Sharing her experiences, she mainly said that lack of motivation is the main problem she faces. It is because of the lack of acceptance from society. Persons with disabilities are not accepted. Similarly, schools and colleges do not admit persons with disabilities, and even if a very few of them do, the building structures and infrastructures are not disability friendly. Another point she mentioned was that she was suggested to change her field of profession just because of her physical deformity. She expressed her sadness about how persons with disabilities are demotivated to follow their dreams or choose the career of their choice. They lack freedom of choice. Further, she also shared her experience of rejection for marriage. Like her, many men and women with disability have difficulties finding life partners for marriage, as most people think marrying a person with disability as an extra burden. They are judged solely on the basis of their appearance. Their capacity, intelligence, and creativity are not valued. This is why she said that she sometimes feels demotivated and holds herself back even when presented with new and exciting opportunities. This directly or indirectly has negative impacts on her mental health. Like her, in general, persons with disabilities face same problems in their daily life. But there are some people like my friend who fight back and get self motivated and chase their dreams with full confidence. She now holds a good position in a governmental organization. Hence, youths need to take responsibility and push actions now to see the future that they want for the next generation. If we want to see a future full of promise and opportunities for every single member of our society, we must come together to generate collective empathy and kindness to build a tolerant world. It is therefore completely in our hands to create an inclusive and a diverse society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ganu, for your thought-provoking words through your personal and work experiences. Finally, I would like to welcome Mr. Yosuke Aoyama, the Chief of the Outreach Team in Empower Project in Japan. Mr. Aoyama has been working as the leading member in communicating with numerous stakeholders, including UN agencies, private sectors, and civil society organizations, including organizations of persons with disabilities, not only in Japan, but overseas in the Empower Project. It is my pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, co-organizers, and distinguished fellow panelists and participants. My name is Kyosuke Aoyama, the Chief of the Outreach Office of the Empower Project. It is my great honor to be able to co-organize this event with my many youth colleagues at this important global conference and share our activities and action points for youth for the full implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD. While about 1 out of 4 people in the world are young, and young people make up the majority of the population in most developing countries, in Japan, the number of youth is drastically decreasing. The number of youth is about 2.5 times less than that of older persons. Our activities were born in such a situation. The Empower Project aims at enabling each and everyone to indicate that they are willing to be supporters for those who need support whenever they want to. This project is based on the SDG target 10.2 on the empowerment and inclusion of all. We developed this magenta star logo through which anyone can show his or her willingness to support others. We call it coming out by supporters. In Japan, we have a culture where those, including pregnant women, persons with disabilities, and older persons, wear badges to indicate when they need support. From the lessons, we, the Empower Project, promotes the coming out by supporters by preparing this logo to indicate their inner voice of please feel free to contact me if you need support. The coming out by supporters is useful for those who do not wish to disclose their personal identity or conditions, and those who have invisible conditions such as persons with mental health conditions or psychosocial disabilities and persons with intellectual disabilities, those who are not feel well, among others. In addition, this will also be useful for those who want to offer support but wondering how to express that, or those who are shy. Therefore, the magenta star is useful for both those who want support and those who want to support. In the Empower project, we do not define people by attribution, categories, or any stereotypes. The movement simply focuses on the needs of individuals on the spot. When we support each other, nationality, disability, age, and sexual identity usually do not matter. Rather, what we need is to understand the needs of the person. Understand through direct communication and respect for each other. In most cases, we can respond to those needs without professional knowledge or specialized skills. If we feel we cannot provide the requested support, we can simply connect them to someone who is eligible or more appropriate. For example, many might have had an experience of getting lost in a foreign city and needed support. To support such a traveler, we usually need information on where and how they want to go, and do not need detailed information such as gender identity or his or her family background or any specialized expertise. Likewise, anyone can become a supporter. For example, a wheelchair user might know where the elevators are in a station. Rather, and travelers with big baggage and parents with stars can benefit from this knowledge very much. The magenta star is very easy to use. First, we put on magenta star when we feel we can support others. Second, those who want support will find us through the magenta star and ask for support. Then, those wearing a magenta star will provide the requested support if possible. If the needs are beyond our capacity, we will then try to link them with someone who might be able to support them. We designed this project in a way young people can have more fun, feel cool, and have a program be accessible, particularly for those who are not currently very much interested in contributing to global or local cooperation. Notably, the logo was created with symbolic meanings and aimed at what young people can integrate into their fashion. We have made many kinds of goods with the magenta star, such as badges, stickers, charms, bandages, and some of them are sold in fashion stores. The Empower project is run by young people in collaboration with various partners, including UN organizations, municipal authorities, and private companies. We have broadened the field of our action from Tokyo to include other regions in Japan, such as Kanazawa City and Nagasaki Prefecture, and also to the other countries like the Philippines. Just like an older person has his or her needs and strengths, and a younger person has his or her strengths and needs as well, and they can support each other. Differences are assets rather than threats in our daily lives. Supporting each other by utilizing our differences, many challenges can be overcome. Actually, differences and age, gender, disability, language, ethnicity, etc., are factors to make our lives more diverse, rich in cultures and choices, and happy. Again, all of us, with or without disabilities, face various challenges and need other people's support. All of us can be important supporters when someone is in need. Those not all the differences are visible or spoken, we all are different anyways. Our society has put in a lot of labels on people related to gender, age, disability, nationality, or race. However, these are just one aspect of us, and they do not define who we are or what we do. Though my best friend and I are both from the same city, have the same gender identity, and speak the same language, we like different sports, different cars, and we have different dreams. Stereotypic preconceptions are often incorrect. Regardless of levels or categories, we have individually different strengths and needs. Since we are multifaceted, it is difficult to assume our strengths and needs from the outside. Then, what should we do? We can simply value each other's different strengths and needs. We fill the gaps utilizing such differences among each other. We should stop creating physical and attitudinal barriers in our environment and in our minds, as our predecessors wisely based the convention on the social models of disabilities. You might be able to do what I cannot, and I might be able to do what you cannot for yourself. In doing so, I would like to propose some paradigm shift. First, let us make the implementation of the CLPD cool and fashionable among young people. Second, let us integrate the perspective of emotional well-being as a key monitoring indicators for the CLPD, in addition to traditional indices such as GDP, mortality, military power, and academic achievements. We need to look into the fact that suicide is the leading cause of deaths among adolescents, including adolescents with disabilities. Full implementation of the CLPD cannot be achieved without involving everyone, including us, the young people. During the COVID-19 pandemic, most school events were canceled, and many of us have been unable to meet friends and loved ones. However, there are many things that we can do even now. For example, mutual support, even through the internet, is more crucial than ever. We can do a lot as it relates to that. I believe that mentally comfortable will be a key word in our future society. By focusing on the needs and well-being of each person in their daily lives, there will be a positive cycle of the support and kindness, which will be, in turn, extended to many other people. I hope many youth and adults will join the Empower Project, and through youth movements, young people will continue playing a key role in building a kind and positive culture where CLPD will be genuinely implemented worldwide. According to our views that I elaborated, I want to propose action points for the full implementation of the CLPD. The most important point is being aware that the full implementation of the CLPD cannot be achieved only by persons with disabilities. We need the involvement of all people. We all encounter various challenges regardless of our attributions or other differences. We all have different needs, and we should focus on those needs. There are many things that young people can do without much cost. First, we can address barriers in our minds, and with respecting differences, we should strengthen mutual support to achieve a more comfortable and kind world. The power of each individual youth is not small. Our collective power is huge. We are the future, and all of us have a lot of possibilities. Believing in that, I would like to continue what we have started and call for your participation and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aoyama, for your encouraging words on how young generations can take actions easily to bring about a dramatic change in our society. Lastly, it is my greatest honor to welcome Professor Takashi Izutsu, Director, UNITAR-U Tokyo COMEX Forum on Diversity, Disability, and Inclusion. Professor Izutsu has been a significant global leader in promoting the rights of persons with disabilities, with experiences as the chief on mental and psychosocial well-being and disability at the UN headquarters, while currently working close together with students in the University of Tokyo. It is my greatest privilege to have you here to give us the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Shunsuke, for your kind introduction. First, I would like to thank the Voice of Youth Japan and their partners, UNICEF Tokyo Office, as well as Japan Committee for UNICEF and the U Tokyo Unite and the Empower Project for co-organizing this panel discussion. Representing the UNITAR U Tokyo Global Forum on Diversity, Disability, and Inclusion, I would like to convey my deepest gratitude to His Excellency Foreign Minister Luis Gallegos for his strong support. And I would like to also thank the UN Secretariat, particularly DESA, for preparing and coordinating this important opportunity in this challenging situation. Last but not least, the talented young leaders on the panel, as well as all the participants, I sincerely thank you for such an inspiring and insightful discussion. While I was a young boy, I was very shy and very quiet. So I didn't talk about it to other fellows, but I was always feeling that I was different from others, and I was afraid of it, while other part of myself was little proud of my differences. And I try to understand who I am and what this world is through looking into artworks such as books, films, and music from different parts of the world. After a few decades and looking back, I realized that most of my achievements, if any, are thanks to my differences. But I would say I'm still a bit afraid of my differences while being proud of those at the same time. And now I realize we all are different anyways. In addition, we are always changing too. And we all are sometimes positively and sometimes negatively affected by our differences. We have many different differences in our experiences, preferences, backgrounds, likes and dislikes, something good at and something not good at, and so on. We also change with time. I might have disliked something in the past, but might have come to like it and good at it later. That's why it is impossible to define a person in a few paragraphs. By the way, I still can't define myself at this age, and now I know I don't need to. Listening to today's excellent presentations and discussions, I come to remember such things and the fact that we all are the same. I know it is strange to say we are all the same with saying that we all are different. But we are the same in a sense that we are all different. And we all are partly afraid of ourselves, and we all are afraid of others who look or sound different, and at the same time, proud of ourselves and envy or look up to differences of others. Human beings are such ambivalent beings with transient emotions. And I think that's the wonderful part of human beings. And working on disability and diversity reminds us of the importance to take these into account in all the policy making and program implementation, regardless of the areas, including peace and security, development, or human rights. I concur with panelists today. If we understand differences as assets and pay more attention to our emotional aspects and communicate with and support each other more, and with some imagination, creativity, and positivity, we can achieve our mental health and well-being as the foundation for peace and overall well-being. As the little prince taught us, the essential is invisible to the eye, but still they are the essential. Once again, I would like to thank all the young panelists and participants. I'm looking forward to learning more from and collaborating with you for the betterment of the future world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Izutsu, for your wonderful and inspirational message. Now, I would like to first express my full gratitude to all of the panelists, all the participants, and everyone who had given their precious efforts in making this event happen. We also look forward to seeing you again and collaborating together in our projects in the near future, both remotely and in person. I would like to end the session today with one message quoting from the remarks of Professor Izutsu. We all are the same, but we all are different. Even though we are all biologically the same as a human being, every human being is different. We all have different preferences, different talents, different emotions, different looks, and so on. It is these differences that make every human being so special and so inspiring. Respecting each other's differences and seeing the beauty of difference in every human being will be one of the fundamental aspects for accomplishing the full implementation of CRPD, attaining SDGs, and creating a truly diverse and inclusive world. I hope that our generation can work together to accomplish this goal. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of the day.